And this is Selva Kumar, working as Assistant Professor in PMS College of Engineering and giving a presentation on Introduction to the .NET. The main objectives here understanding the previous state of affairs and which gave solution as a .NET framework, and the .NET solution, what are the solution given in the .NET framework, basic building blocks of the .NET platform, that is a CLR, CTS and CLS, and understanding assemblies and .NET base class libraries. So before examining specifics of .NET concepts, so first we need to understand what made Microsoft to come up with a new solution that is called a .NET framework here. So in the previous languages we had a lot of issues, so which motivated the Microsoft to design a new programming concepts or new platforms, which is the solution is given by the Microsoft in the form of .NET. So as you see, our Win32 API programmers were facing the problem here. It is more structure oriented, no object concepts are supported, and manual memory management, and to work with pointer concepts. There is ugly pointer arithmetics and then ugly syntactic constructs. So these were the issues with the C programming language. So Microsoft come up with a new version that is called a C++, so along with the Microsoft Foundation classes added in that. And the main advantage here in the C++ is object oriented concepts, but still, since it is inherited from the C programming language, all the memory management and pointer arithmetic concepts and everything is written in the C++ also. And as a VB6 programming, the Microsoft is given the new programming language where the complex user interface can be designed easily here, and a lot of APIs can be built-in APIs are available to design the Windows based applications quickly here, but still it is not supporting object oriented concept. It's just a object aware languages or design. And as a Java and JTB programmers, so there's a first programming language which was designed with the platform independent concepts, but still it doesn't support much of the cross language integration concepts which were newly added in the .NET framework. And as a COM programmer, component object module, so which was designed, which is helpful for language independent programming, so where the binaries can be used in different programming language irrespective of the coding which are used to develop it. But still again, the COM programming integration with different program or the deployment was difficult here, and that overall we call that as a DLL hell. And as a Windows DNA programmer, and Microsoft have given for distributed internet architecture the various programming language like ASP, Active Server Pages, JavaScript, VBScript, HTML, other programming language to develop a web-based application. But still each language is having own syntax, and so many syntax a programmer has to learn in order to design a web applications. And for all these issues, Microsoft come up with a solution that is called a .NET framework. We can call this a .NET platform, which will be installed on top of operating system, which give solution to all these problems. And first of all, it gives solution to platform independent. The code which are writing and compiling for the .NET will be having intermediate language which it's not platform specific code, and then it supports cross language integration and many other features. And first of all, it supports a full interoperability with existing Win32 code. You can use existing COM binaries or any other the code which are using different programming languages can be easily integrated here, and it fully support interoperability. And so that's a feature is added in the .NET, and the complete and total language integrations, so which was lacking in Java. So here any programming language is written that can be easily integrate. You can inherit some features from the different for example, the class is written in a C++, that you can inherit in a C# language, and you can perform exception handling and debugging. So all this can be performed with the class language platform, and which is supported in the .NET. And the common language runtime, so which is basically the core part of the .NET platform here, so which creates a runtime executions where different programming languages can be run and then execute on the platform. And many more features added in the common language runtime, so we're going to discuss in detail about that. The base class library, so again there is the common base class, all the API or functionality will be compiled and kept in one single space, and that is used for the different programming languages. And no more COM plumbing here. So again, the component object model had issues with deployment and integration with the different programming languages, and we need to write a separate code for integrating using the different in the different languages, but now .NET is given solution for that, and there are more registry entry and no more integration code you need to write, so that can be easily solved using the .NET solution. And finally, the truly simplified deployment model. So there are no more system registry, so you need to enter into the system registry here, and you can keep multiple copies of DLL, so which was problem in the earlier deployment. So that all the deployment issues was made easier using .NET. The concept called global assembly caches that made all the deployment easier here. And this solution, you can see the .NET frameworks. The overall picture it shows about the Visual Studio .NET, so where on top of operating system a .NET framework will be installed, and top of that will be having base class libraries, and above that will be, apart from primitive library functions, you also have ADO.NET for database connectivity and access. All the APIs will be available, and apart from that, ASP.NET for designing your web application or web services. All the APIs will be compiled and kept it in ASP.NET. And similarly, Windows Forms and Windows Services can be created using the Windows library functionality. And on top of that, you can see the common language specification. So any language, if you wanted to write a program, so .NET will support. And for that, the compiler has to be designed by checking the it should be designed for the common language runtime, and the common language specification specifies the rules. That rules will be used by the different programming languages in order to host the information into the common language runtime. And this is the basic building blocks of .NET here. There's a common language runtime, common type system, common language specifications. So these three things is called a basic building blocks, which is used to create the .NET framework here. And the common language runtime, so basically it is the main part of the .NET framework here, or you can call core part of the .NET framework, which is the main execution engine, which creates execution environment for the different programming language to execute it. And apart from that, it also supports automatic memory management and support language integration and type safety, the code security. So all the features will be supported by the common language runtime. And common type system, it describes all possible data types and programming constructs supported by the runtime. And so basically it gives all what are the different data types and constructs which will be supported. So that will be useful for CLR to host the programmer onto the operating system. And CLS, common language specification, it just basically gives a set of rules for the compiler designers and the base class library designers, so that again CLR can host that onto the operating system. The common language runtime, it provides a runtime execution engine. It provides environment. It creates an environment for the different programming language to be work on a single platform. And it is a core of the .NET platform and the main execution engine. It also provides the managed execution environment and provides services that make the development easier here. As I already said, it gives supports memory management, type safety, security, and many other features will be supported in the common language runtime. And all these services will be exposed through the programming languages. That is, C# exposes more feature of the CLR than other languages, because C# is designed based on the .NET framework. And here we need to understand the assemblies. So what is assembly here? So basically, when you write any code using .NET Aware compilers, for example, if you write a C# source code, and C# .NET Aware compiler is required to compile the code, and when you compile that C# source code, the output will be get created in the form of an assembly. Okay, so rather than creating into the machine understandable code, it just going to create an intermediate code. So assembly it's nothing but it's consisting of intermediate code. It may be modules or functions or a group of functions, and also it consisting of other files, so which is required for an application, for example resource files or bitmaps. So all the information will be present here. And it also consisting of the metadata. So metadata, which holds information about the intermediate language, what type of coding you use, all such information will be kept in the metadata. And assembly also consisting of another metadata, so that is officially called manifest, which holds information about the assembly itself, that is assembly name, assembly version, so any other the functionality which you used from reference from the other applications, all such information will be kept inside the manifest. So example, if you take CIL, common intermediate code, So consider an application, a program which application is created for calculator application, and you can see the C# code is written for the calculator application, and one add method functionality is written. And when you compile this code using .NET Aware compiler, it is going to generate an intermediate code. For example, this is the snapshot of add method of common intermediate language. And if you write the same program calculator application using different programming languages, whether VB or C++, and so when you compile the code and when you check that intermediate language code, so all the codes will be look identical here. So that makes the common integration features in the .NET. So it makes cross integration is possible because all the intermediate code will be look identical here. So that makes cross integration of the different programming language possible in the .NET. And manifest, as I said, it holds information about assembly itself. It holds assembly name and assembly version, and other files which is referred in applications will be held in assembly informations. So which is useful for C# compiler as well as for many other the functionality like IntelliSense and XML references. Many other places, the manifest will be useful. And finally, when you come to the execution, so how the CIL intermediate code gets executed. So here, so once you compile any programming language which is designed for .NET Aware compiler, so it's going to generate an intermediate code that is called a common intermediate language. And again, that when you want to execute that or run that code, common language runtime execution will has a just-in-time compiler, so we call this the jitter. So that is coming to the picture here. So when you want to run the code, then just-in-time compiler will come into the picture, and which converts your intermediate code to the platform specific or machine specific language, and then your code will be get executed here. And common type system is a formal specification that describes how the given type must be defined for the common language runtime. So here it's basically in order to execute your program, the common language runtime should understand what type of programming language you created. So based on that, it creates and loads, it set up the environment to execute your program. So for that reason, any programming you're designing for the writing for the .NET, so one has to use these are the basic types which common language is going to support. Basically it supports class type, structure, interface, enumeration, and delegate type. And all class, structure, interface, enumeration, so that in C++. Only the delegate concepts is new in the .NET, so that C# language supports. So it's nothing but a function pointer, like in a C function function pointers, but are actually type safe, secure, and managed CLR objects, and which will be helpful for callback functions, and it will be more suited for event based programming. And common language specification, as I said, it's a general rule set of rules, a guidelines that describes the minimal and complete set of features a given .NET Aware compiler must support, so that it will be basically helpful for the compiler designers and class library designers who has to follow these rules, so that a common language runtime can understand host the information onto the operating system. And apart from that, it also has the base class library. So as I said, all the APIs and functionality will be compiled and kept in a one single place, and that is called a base class library. And apart from basic functionality, it also provides support for database manipulation, XML integrations, web enabled front end. So all the APIs will be kept in a one single place, and that is used for different programming languages. And here the overview of .NET framework here. So any program which is written for the .NET, it has to be get compiled using .NET Aware compilers. For example, if you write a C# code, then C# compiler should be available. If you write C++ and C++.NET compiler should be required to compile your code, and that will be get converted to the intermediate form. And finally, in order to execute that code, you require a common language runtime will come into the picture, which is called Microsoft Common Object Runtime Execution Engine.dll will be get loaded into the memory, and then that it converts your intermediate code to the specific code, and in turn it makes use of the base class library. If your program is referring any APIs, then class loader will be available in the CLR that loads your basic library into the memory, and then the jitter just-in-time compiler will come into the picture here, which converts intermediate language to the platform specific or machine code, and then program will start executes. So this is the overview about the .NET framework. In summary here,